Lyra stood at the edge of the floating cliffs of Zephora, her bright green eyes scanning the valley below. The wind danced through her hair, carrying the faint hum of the luminous plants that grew along the floating islands. Zephora was a beautiful planet, full of colors that shifted like rainbows, and sounds that pulsed like music in the air. But it was also a dangerous place, especially for one as curious as Lyra. Ever since she was a small child, Lyra had been able to hear voices differently from others. While most Zypherans relied on spoken words and gestures, she could sense vibrations in the air and interpret them as words. It was a rare gift, one that made her special, but also careful. Not every voice she heard was friendly, and some carried warnings she could not ignore. Today, she had wandered farther than usual. The floating cliffs stretched endlessly, and she had reached a part of the valley that most villagers avoided. The mist here was thick, curling like fingers around the glowing trees. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine, but it was not fear that made her pause. It was a sound, a voice, soft, distant, but clear. It whispered her name. Lyra. Lyra. Her heart skipped a beat. No one in the village knew she had come here. The voice could not be a villager. She looked around carefully, her senses alert. The floating islands shifted slightly above her head, and the glowing plants swayed as if they were listening too. "Who's there?" Lyra called softly, though she did not expect an answer in words. She listened instead, letting the vibrations in the air guide her. The voice came again, closer now, though still impossible to place. It was human. She could sense it somehow, even though she had never met a human on Zephora before. The stories her parents told her spoke of humans visiting rare planets, sometimes friendly, sometimes dangerous. But Lyra felt no threat. Something about the voice was gentle, even curious. Following the sound, Lyra moved carefully down the slope of the cliff. The mist wrapped around her, and she had to step lightly on the moss-covered stones. She was close now, and then she saw him. A human. He stood among the glowing ferns, tall and pale-skinned, his brown hair falling slightly over his forehead. His clothes were strange and simple, unlike anything a Zypheran would wear. He looked around as if he had just woken from a dream. His blue eyes were wide with wonder, and Lyra could see that he was lost. "Hello?" she said gently, her voice shaking the mist. Are you lost?" The human blinked, then nodded. I think so," he said. His voice was soft, almost hesitant. "I don't know where I am." Lyra felt the vibrations of his voice, not in the words he spoke, but in something deeper. She froze, realizing what she was hearing. This human. I can hear his thoughts, his mind. It is speaking to me without sound. But when she said, "I can hear you," the human's eyes widened. "Hear me? I didn't speak," he said, his hands lifting slightly as if to protect himself. Lyra blinked. You didn't?" "No," he replied, frowning. "I only said a few words, but nothing else." "What do you mean?" Lyra's heart raced. No human had ever visited Zephora, at least none that she knew of, and yet here was one whose mind somehow reached her directly. She did not understand it, but she felt a strange connection to him. "My name is Lyra," she said carefully. "I can hear thoughts differently. Your mind speaks to me in a way I don't fully understand." The human looked at her with a mixture of fear and awe. "That is impossible. Humans don't do that." "I know," Lyra admitted. "But somehow, I can hear you." She paused, studying him. "Are you here by choice? Or did you come here by accident?" He shook his head. "I don't remember. One moment I was on my ship, and the next, I woke up here." He glanced around at the glowing plants and floating islands. "This place, it's amazing, but I don't understand it." Lyra smiled faintly. "It is amazing," but dangerous too. You should not be alone here." The human hesitated, then nodded. "I'm Caleb," he said. "I will follow your lead." Lyra felt the vibrations of his mind shift slightly as he said this. He didn't realize it, but his thoughts were still sending signals she could feel. She shook her head slightly to focus. This is unusual. Humans shouldn't, but maybe they can. Maybe he is special. Carefully, Lyra gestured for him to follow. They moved through the misty valley together, the glowing plants lighting their path. Lyra explained the basics of the valley, the floating islands, the wind currents, the vines that glowed when touched. Caleb listened, sometimes speaking aloud, sometimes just nodding, and she could hear his thoughts all the while. "You're really different," he said finally. "I don't know how to explain it. I feel like you know things before I even say them." "I hear things you do not speak," Lyra said softly. "It is not magic. It is my gift." They walked for a while in silence, each careful with their steps. The mist made shadows move strangely, and the soft hum of Zyphora's plants filled the air. Lyra could sense a presence nearby, a small curiosity stirring. She had to be careful. Not every voice she heard was friendly, and she could feel the vibrations of the valley shifting slightly, as if warning her. Then, without warning, a low rumble echoed through the floating islands. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, and glowing plants nearby shivered. Caleb looked alarmed. "What was that?" Lyra's ears twitched. "I do not know, but we should be careful. Zyphora has ways of protecting itself." As they moved forward, Lyra noticed something remarkable. The closer Caleb came to certain plants, the stronger the vibrations she felt in her head. It was as if his presence amplified her abilities. She paused, placing her hand on his arm. "Do you feel that?" she asked. He looked at her, puzzled. "Feel what?" "The hum, the voices, the vibrations of the valley. They change when you are near. I can hear things more clearly." Caleb frowned. I don't understand. I'm not doing anything. I don't speak. I'm just here." Lyra smiled gently. "I know. That is what makes it strange. Your mind, your presence, it speaks in a way I can hear." The mist began to thicken, and Lyra could sense movement nearby. Something was coming, but she could not tell what. She gripped Caleb's arm tightly. "Stay close," she warned. "I do not know what is near, but it may not be friendly." Caleb nodded. His eyes scanned the glowing trees and floating cliffs. Though he was frightened, there was a spark of determination in him. He trusted Lyra, even though he did not understand her abilities. Suddenly, a figure darted through the mist. Lyra tensed. It was small, fast, and glowing faintly. She could feel its curiosity and intelligence. It was a Zyphoran scout, sent by her village to find her. "Lyra!" a voice called, though faintly. She relaxed slightly. "It is only one of our scouts," she said. "We are safe, for now." Caleb watched the scout with wide eyes. "Your world, it is alive," he said softly. "Everything here moves and thinks." Lyra nodded. "Yes, Zyphora is alive in ways humans rarely see, and sometimes it speaks to those who can hear." They followed the scout back toward Lyra's village, moving carefully through the glowing vines and floating paths. Along the way, Lyra sensed the voice again. It was faint this time, almost like a whisper, but unmistakably her name. Lyra. She glanced at Caleb. "Do you hear it?" "I don't," he said, frowning. "I don't hear anything except the wind and your words." Lyra nodded. She had expected this. "It is my gift. You cannot hear it, but I can. And it leads me. Always." By the time they reached the edge of the village, the sun of Zyphora was low in the sky, casting golden light over the floating islands. Villagers began to gather, curious and cautious. They stared at Caleb, whispering among themselves. Humans were rare, and his presence was unusual. Lyra stepped forward. "This is Caleb," she announced. "He did not speak, yet somehow he reached me." The villagers murmured in confusion. An elder stepped forward, a wise Zypheran with silver-tipped hair. "Lyra, you brought a human here? Are you certain he is safe?" Lyra nodded firmly. "I do not know yet, but I can hear him, and something tells me he is not here to harm us." Caleb looked around, sensing the tension. He took a deep breath. I don't mean any harm," he said softly. "I just want to understand." The elder studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Then he shall stay. For now." Lyra smiled, relief washing over her. She looked at Caleb and felt the strange hum of his presence again. The voice she had heard, guiding her here, was still faint in her mind. Something was beginning, something important, and perhaps the beginning of an adventure that would change both their worlds. And in that moment, Lyra understood one thing clearly. Voices are not always spoken, and sometimes the mind speaks louder than words. The village of Zyphera stretched across a series of floating islands, each connected by slender bridges of glowing vines. The houses were built from crystal-like plants and woven light fibers. Everything seemed alive, breathing softly in rhythm with the wind. Lyra led Caleb through the village cautiously, aware of every movement and sound around them. The villagers whispered as they passed, eyes wide with curiosity. Humans were rare visitors to Zephora, and Caleb's presence sparked both fear and wonder. Lyra's heart raced. She could hear the faint vibrations of the villagers' thoughts, a chorus of worry and fascination. She reached out, trying to calm the collective unease. "He means no harm. He is here by accident. Trust me." The vibrations softened, and the villagers seemed to relax slightly, though they did not fully understand her words. Caleb followed silently, still unsure of what to expect. His blue eyes scanned the strange, glowing environment. He had been trained as an explorer, but nothing in his training prepared him for a world that seemed alive, where the very plants pulsed with light and energy. He felt a faint thrill of excitement mixed with fear. "I still don't understand," Caleb said quietly as they walked. "I didn't speak, but you hear me? How is that possible?" Lyra shook her head. "I do not know fully. It is my gift. I can hear vibrations in the air as voices. Sometimes I can hear thoughts that are not spoken. With you, it is different. Your mind, it speaks to me in a way I cannot explain." Caleb ran a hand through his hair. "So, I'm talking without talking? That's impossible." Lyra smiled faintly. "Yes, humans do not usually speak this way, but somehow, you do. I can feel your presence like a song in the air." They reached the central square of the village. A large crystal fountain shimmered in the middle, sending arcs of glowing water into the sky. Around it, Zephorans went about their daily activities, gathering food from floating trees, weaving light threads, and communicating through gestures and soft hums. All of it vibrated with life, but Caleb could only see the surface. An elder approached them, her silver-tipped hair reflecting the glow of the fountain. Her eyes, sharp and thoughtful, studied Caleb intently. "Lyra," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Tell me what you hear from him." Lyra took a deep breath. "His mind. It is quiet, but the vibrations reach me. He does not speak, yet he communicates. I cannot fully explain it, but I trust him." The elder's brow furrowed. "This is unusual. Humans are rare, and none have been able to reach the minds of our people. If what you say is true, he may be unique." Caleb stepped forward. "I really don't know how this works," he said honestly. I don't hear anything special, and I don't control my mind in any unusual way. Lyra placed a hand lightly on his arm. I know, but somehow, your presence affects me. Your mind sends signals I can feel. You do not speak, but I can hear. The elder nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. We must study this carefully. A human whose mind reaches a Xipheran, this could be significant for all our people. Lyra glanced at Caleb. He looked overwhelmed by the attention, but also curious. Are you willing to help us? She asked. Caleb hesitated, then nodded. I want to understand. I want to help. With that, the elder guided them to a large building made of shimmering crystal, the village's research hall. Inside, Xiphoran scientists and scholars worked with floating devices that measured vibrations in the air, light pulses, and other forms of energy. They were intrigued by Caleb, but none could detect conventional speech coming from him. Lyra stepped forward and tried a simple experiment. She asked Caleb to think of a word, any word. The moment he concentrated, Lyra felt a ripple in her mind, a faint, clear vibration that corresponded to the word he imagined. The scientists gasped softly. One of them adjusted a measuring device, but it showed no detectable signal. It was as if only Lyra could perceive it. Caleb looked at her, wide-eyed. I just thought of it. That's all. I didn't speak. Lyra nodded. I know, and yet I hear it. One of the scholars spoke carefully. Perhaps this human has a natural connection to certain vibrations. It is unlike anything we have seen before. Lyra, you must be careful. Such connections can be powerful. Lyra frowned slightly. I will be careful, but I feel safe with him. I trust him. The elder placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder. Trust is good, but understanding is better. You must learn the limits of this connection. Over the next few hours, Lyra guided Caleb through various experiments. She asked him to imagine colors, shapes, and movements. Each time a faint ripple appeared in her perception. Sometimes she could even sense emotions, calmness, curiosity, confusion, emanating from him, though he remained unaware. Caleb's curiosity grew. This is strange. I feel normal, but you're sensing something I didn't even know I was sending. Lyra nodded. It is not your fault. It is my gift. But together, we can understand more, perhaps even help each other. As the day passed, the mist outside grew thicker, and the air began to hum with unusual energy. Lyra's senses alerted her to something approaching. The vibrations in the air were subtle at first, then stronger. She stiffened. Caleb, do you feel that? He shook his head. Feel what? The energy in the valley. Something is coming. I cannot see it, but it is powerful. The elder stepped forward, concern etched on her face. The cosmic storms, they are unpredictable. If this is one, we must prepare. Lyra's pulse quickened. Cosmic storms were rare on Zephora, but dangerous. They disrupted minds and senses, causing confusion and fear. Villagers would need guidance to remain safe. She turned to Caleb. Your presence, it affects me. I think if we stay close, I can manage the energy more easily. Caleb frowned. I don't understand. How can I help if I'm not even speaking? Lyra smiled faintly. It is not your words. It is your mind. Your presence. I can sense it. You are stabilizing me. The elder nodded slowly. This is remarkable. A human who can calm a Xipheran mind through his mere presence. Perhaps we have underestimated your kind. Caleb's mind whirled. I didn't know I could do this. I never imagined humans could affect minds like this. Lyra placed a hand on his arm again. Neither did I. But now we must focus. The energy is growing stronger, and we may need to guide the villagers through it. Outside, the glowing plants bent slightly, as if bowing to the rising wind. Lyra could hear the faintest echo of a voice again, her own name. Lyra. She glanced at Caleb. It calls me. The storm. It may be testing us or warning us. We must stay alert. Caleb nodded, swallowing his fear. Then I will stay close. Whatever happens, I will help. The villagers began to gather in the square, anxious and uncertain. Lyra instructed them to remain calm, using the vibrations in the air to soothe their panic. Caleb stayed near her side, silent, yet his presence strengthened her gift. She could feel the human's natural energy blending with her own abilities, creating a protective bubble around them. The mist thickened further, and the air vibrated with unseen power. Lyra's heart raced, but she kept her mind focused. We can do this. We can protect them. We can learn together. As the first signs of the storm appeared, a shimmer in the sky, a ripple through the floating islands, Lyra realized that Caleb's arrival was no accident. Their connection was not random. Something had brought them together, something bigger than either of them could understand. She looked at him, her eyes shining with determination. We must face this together, she said softly. Caleb nodded, his jaw set. Together, he repeated. And in that moment, the bond between Zephoran and human began to form, silent but unbreakable. As the first waves of the mysterious storm rippled across the valley, the adventure had truly begun. The sky above Zephora darkened in ways Lyra had never seen before. The floating islands trembled under the weight of a strange energy that pulsed through the air like a heartbeat. The mist that usually wrapped the valley in a gentle glow became thick and restless, swirling as if it had a mind of its own. Lyra could feel the vibrations stronger than ever. Something was coming, and it was powerful. Beside her, Caleb stood silently. He watched the glowing plants bend and sway unnaturally in the wind. What is happening? He asked quietly, though Lyra could feel his thoughts as waves of confusion in her mind. I do not know entirely, Lyra admitted, but I feel a disturbance, something that affects the minds of Zyphorans. It is not friendly. The villagers gathered in the square, their faces pale and eyes wide with fear. The elder stepped forward, raising her hands to calm them. Everyone, stay where you are. Do not panic. Lyra will guide us. Lyra took a deep breath. She could sense the energy shifting, like ripples across water, touching the thoughts of every Zyphoran nearby. Their minds began to waver, confusion and fear growing stronger. Some of the villagers started whispering to each other, their voices trembling. Caleb glanced at her. What can I do? I don't even know how to help. Lyra looked into his eyes, feeling the faintest vibration of calm from him. You may not speak, but your presence, it steadies me. Stay close. He nodded. Though he did not understand, he trusted her. He stepped near, and Lyra felt the waves of fear in the villagers' minds lessen slightly. His presence acted as an anchor, grounding her abilities, helping her focus. The wind rose higher, carrying a strange hum that made the floating islands quiver. Lyra could feel the energy like a voice in her mind, though it was not spoken. Test or threat. She sensed a pulse of raw power stretching across the valley. She moved through the crowd, her hand brushing against plants and structures, stabilizing the vibrations. Caleb followed, silent but steady. The villagers looked at him with wonder. Humans were rare, but this one, he was special. Somehow he could affect the mind of a Zyphoran without speaking, without trying. This energy, Lyra murmured. It is unlike anything I have felt. It can disrupt minds. If it reaches the village fully, many will lose control. The elder's brow furrowed. Then we must act quickly. Can you contain it, Lyra? Lyra shook her head. Not alone, but with him, we may have a chance. She glanced at Caleb. You do not understand your role yet, but your presence helps. Together, we can resist the storm. Caleb swallowed, feeling a mix of fear and responsibility. I'll do whatever I can. They moved toward the center of the village, where the glowing fountain pulsed faintly with light. Lyra raised her hands, closing her eyes as she focused on the vibrations. She could hear the storm in her mind, a chaotic mixture of energy and emotion pushing at her senses. She concentrated, letting Caleb's presence guide her. The storm reacted. Waves of energy pulsed outward, but Lyra was able to stabilize them slightly. She felt the minds of the villagers relax, their fear restrained by the combined force of her gift and Caleb's presence. It was strange, impossible, yet real. Caleb watched in awe as Lyra's eyes glowed faintly, a reflection of the storm's energy in her being. You're controlling it, he said softly. But I don't understand how. Lyra opened her eyes. I do not fully understand, but I can hear it. I can feel it. And with you, I can guide it away from the village. The wind howled louder, carrying streaks of dark light across the sky. The storm was not just natural, it seemed intelligent, as if it could think, react, and adapt. Lyra's heart pounded. She could sense its curiosity, its testing, probing for weaknesses in the village's defenses. Suddenly, a portion of the floating islands trembled violently. Rocks and plants shook loose, tumbling into the mist below. Villagers screamed, running in all directions. Lyra gritted her teeth. "Caleb!" she called. "Stay close!" He rushed to her side, his presence grounding her once again. Together they moved through the chaos, Lyra's hands raised to stabilize the energy, Caleb's silent support anchoring her mind. The storm surged, stronger this time. Lyra felt it push at her very thoughts, trying to break through. She closed her eyes, focusing on the bond between them. She reached out to Caleb, feeling his calm, steady energy flow into her like a river. Slowly, she began to push back. The storm's energy met their combined force, the vibrations in the air twisting and turning. Lyra could sense the storm's curiosity turning to frustration. It had never met a force like theirs before. The villagers watched in awe as Lyra and Caleb stood together, their bond silent but powerful. One by one, the waves of fear began to subside. The storm could not break their connection. Finally, with a last pulse of energy, the storm began to dissipate. The mist thinned, the floating islands stabilized, and the air became calm once more. Lyra sank to her knees, exhausted, but relieved. Caleb knelt beside her, his hands hovering near her shoulders. "You did it," he said softly, still unable to believe what had just happened. Lyra smiled faintly, her body trembling from the effort. "We did it, together. Your presence, it made the difference." The elder stepped forward, her eyes wide with amazement. This is unprecedented. A human who can stabilize a Xipheran mind. Your bond is extraordinary, Lyra. And you? Human. You are unlike any we have known. Caleb shook his head. "I didn't do anything. I didn't even speak. I just stayed." Lyra placed a hand on his arm. And that was enough. Sometimes presence speaks louder than words. As the villagers began to regroup, Lyra felt a faint voice in her mind again, stronger this time, clearer. "Lyra, trust." She looked at Caleb. "The storm, it was not just random. Something brought it here. Something is testing us or warning us, and I believe it is connected to you." Caleb frowned. Me? How could it be? I'm just me. Lyra shook her head. No, you are not just you. Your mind. It interacts with Zyphora in ways humans cannot yet understand. This storm, it sensed you. The elder studied Caleb thoughtfully. Perhaps the human and the Zyphoran are part of something greater. A balance between species, a bridge, maybe even a key to understanding the energy of this planet. Caleb felt both fear and awe. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Lyra smiled gently. None of us are. But we have begun, and together, we can face whatever comes next. Outside, the last remnants of the storm faded into the mist. The glowing plants began to sway gently, as if sighing in relief. The floating islands trembled slightly, then settled. Life on Zyphora returned to its usual rhythm, but Lyra knew this was only the beginning. The storm had shown her something important. Her gift, combined with Caleb's presence, could accomplish what she never thought possible. But it had also revealed a truth that both excited and frightened her. The universe was larger and stranger than anyone on Zyphora had imagined. And humans, with their unseen abilities, could be part of that mystery in ways she had never expected. Lyra turned to Caleb as they walked back to the village. We must learn more. The storm, it was a warning, not just a threat, and I believe it will return. Caleb nodded. Then we will be ready. Whatever happens, I will stay by your side. Lyra felt the faintest vibration of his calm thoughts in her mind, like a steady pulse in the chaos of the universe. She smiled, feeling both reassurance and determination. Together, they would uncover the mysteries of Zyphora, of the storm, and of the bond that connected their worlds. As the sun set behind the floating islands, painting the sky with gold and violet, Lyra knew one thing clearly. Their adventure had only just begun, and whatever challenges lay ahead, she and Caleb would face them as one, silent, connected, and unbreakable. The next morning, the sky above Zyphora glowed with soft golden light, though the air still hummed faintly from the storm's lingering energy. Lyra walked carefully along the floating paths, her eyes alert to every movement. Caleb followed close behind, his blue eyes scanning the glowing plants and floating islands with curiosity. You look tired, Caleb said, glancing at her. Do you need rest? Lyra shook her head. No. The storm was unusual, but I can feel traces of its energy still in the air. I must understand it, and how it reacts to you. Caleb frowned. How does it react to me? I'm not part of the storm. I didn't do anything. Lyra stopped and looked at him. You do not understand yet. Your presence, it interacts with the energy of Zyphora. You stabilize me, and that affects the storm, too. I believe, together, we can learn to control it. He shook his head. Control a storm? That sounds impossible. Lyra smiled faintly. Many things seem impossible until they happen. They reached the research hall, where the elder and the village scientists were waiting. Scrolls of light and floating crystal devices surrounded them, measuring vibrations and energy in the valley. The elder studied Lyra carefully. The storm yesterday, it tested your connection, she said. It showed how powerful your bond with the human can be. But it also revealed danger. The storm is not natural. It reacts to thought, emotion, and presence. If it grows stronger, it could threaten more than this village. Caleb frowned. So it's not just a weather event. It thinks? Yes, Lyra said softly. It reacts. It observes. It tests. And it seems to sense you, even when you do not speak. The elder nodded. We must train both of you. Learn how to control your connection, how to respond to the storm. This may be the first step toward understanding the universe itself. Lyra looked at Caleb. Will you do this with me? Caleb hesitated. then nodded. Yes, I will. But I don't know what I am capable of. Lyra reached out and took his hand. She could feel his calm energy through the contact, faint but steady. It was comforting, grounding her own abilities. That is enough for now. We will learn together. The first training exercise was simple but unusual. Lyra instructed Caleb to focus on calmness, on steady thoughts, while she projected her vibrations outward. She had to guide the invisible currents of energy, feeling how they reacted to his presence. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Lyra concentrated, and the vibrations of the valley pulsed faintly. Then, slowly, the air began to shift. The faint hum of energy stabilized, as if the storm's echoes were responding to their combined focus. Lyra's eyes widened. She could feel it. Caleb's presence amplified her abilities, strengthened the flow, and pushed the chaotic energy into balance. "You're doing it!" Lyra exclaimed. "Feel it? We can affect it together." Caleb's brow furrowed. I don't feel anything, but maybe I am helping without knowing it." "Yes," Lyra said. "Presence can be stronger than words. You are the anchor. I am the guide. Together we can face the storm." They spent hours practicing, moving through the village, projecting calm energy, and sensing the subtle vibrations of the valley. Caleb began to notice small things, the way plants swayed more gently when he concentrated, how Lyra's confidence seemed to grow as he remained near, and even the faint sense of the storm itself reacting to their combined efforts. "You're teaching me to listen differently," Caleb said at one point. "Not with ears, but with feeling. I think I understand your gift a little better now." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. The mind and heart speak in ways the ears cannot hear. You are learning quickly." As they worked, the storm's energy began to grow again, faint but noticeable. Lyra paused, placing her hand on Caleb's arm. "It's returning," she said. "And it will test us more than before." The elder appeared beside them. "The storm will try to find weakness. But you have something powerful, trust and connection. If you remain united, you may turn this threat into understanding." Lyra nodded. She could sense the subtle vibrations again, almost like a whisper in the air. "Lyra, guide, together." Caleb looked at her. "It's speaking to you again. Do you understand what it wants? I think it is testing us, seeing how strong our bond is. If we remain steady, it cannot harm the village." The villagers watched from a safe distance, whispering among themselves. Some looked uncertain, others amazed. Humans were rare visitors, and seeing one interact with a Xipheran in this way was almost unbelievable. As the day passed, Lyra and Caleb moved beyond the village, practicing on the floating islands. The storm's energy pulsed faintly around them, testing their focus. They learned to anticipate its movements, using calm emotions to redirect chaotic vibrations. Lyra discovered that even small changes in Caleb's focus affected the energy dramatically. "You're like a key," Lyra said softly. "I cannot control this alone, but with you, we can shape the energy." Caleb frowned. "A key? I don't feel special. I'm just me." Lyra shook her head. "You are more than you. Your presence connects with my gift, with the storm, with Xiphora itself. That is rare, perhaps unique." Hours passed, and the storm grew restless. The mist thickened, and strange flashes of light danced across the floating islands. Lyra could feel the storm probing, testing their coordination. "Stay focused," she whispered to Caleb. "Calm your thoughts. I will guide the energy." He nodded, closing his eyes. He concentrated on calmness, letting his mind be steady. Lyra felt the subtle vibrations strengthen, amplifying her ability to control the energy. Together, they created a small bubble of calm around themselves, a safe zone in the middle of the rising chaos. The storm reacted angrily, sending pulses of energy outward. Lyra felt the strain, but Caleb's presence held her steady. Slowly, carefully, she pushed the waves back, redirecting the energy into harmless patterns. The floating plants swayed gently, the floating islands stabilized, and the mist thinned slightly. "You're amazing," Caleb said breathlessly. "I didn't know I could do this." "You do not understand yet," Lyra said with a faint smile. "You are not doing it with words. You are doing it with being, presence, trust, and focus. That is how we control this storm." The elder arrived again, observing from a distance. "Remarkable," she murmured. "You are learning the harmony between your species and the energies of this world. If this continues, you may unlock even greater understanding." As the day ended, Lyra and Caleb returned to the village. Exhausted but exhilarated, they walked slowly along the glowing paths. The villagers were calmer now, reassured by the visible stability in the air and by the sight of the human and the Zephyrin working together. Caleb looked at Lyra. "I feel different. I don't know how to explain it. Being near you, focusing like this, I feel connected, not just to you, but to everything here." Lyra nodded. "That is what I feel too. Your mind reaches into the energy of Zyphora. Our connection is not just between us, it is between the world and us. Together, we can understand it." They reached the edge of the village and looked out over the floating islands. The sunset painted the sky with gold and purple light. The mist shimmered faintly, reflecting the last traces of the storm's energy. Lyra placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder. "We have taken the first step. Tomorrow we will train more, explore more, and learn more. But tonight, rest. You have done more than you realize." Caleb smiled faintly. "I never imagined humans could be part of something like this. I thought I was just exploring. But now, it feels bigger, important." Lyra nodded. "It is bigger, and it will only grow. The storm was just a beginning. There are more mysteries, more challenges, but together, we are stronger than either of us alone." As the stars began to appear in the Zyphoran sky, Lyra felt the faintest whisper again in her mind, not from the storm this time, but from somewhere deeper. Together. Understand. Trust. She looked at Caleb and smiled. "Tomorrow we face more, but for now, we rest. And remember, presence can speak louder than words." Caleb nodded. "I will remember, and I will stay with you, no matter what comes next." And with that promise, the two of them settled under the glowing canopy of Zyphora, the bond between human and Zyphoran stronger than ever, ready to face the mysteries and dangers that the universe had in store. The morning sun rose over Zyphora, casting soft golden light across the floating islands. Lyra stood at the edge of the village, her green eyes scanning the misty valleys below. The air hummed faintly with energy, a lingering reminder of the storms they had faced together. Beside her, Caleb adjusted his simple human clothing and looked around at the glowing landscape, awe and determination in his blue eyes. "Today," Lyra said softly, "we face the storm fully. It will test us in ways we have not imagined, but together we can succeed." Caleb nodded, swallowing his fear. "I don't know if I'm ready, but I will stay with you. Whatever happens." Lyra smiled faintly. "That is enough. Your presence, your trust. It is stronger than anything I can do alone." They made their way to the edge of the floating islands, where the storm's energy pulsed faintly. The mist swirled unnaturally, and the vibrations of the valley carried a strange, restless tone. Lyra reached out with her senses, feeling the storm's chaotic energy. It was alive, intelligent, and curious. The elder and the villagers gathered behind them. their faces a mixture of awe and fear. "Lyra," the elder said, "you must guide him. The village trusts you to protect us." Lyra nodded. "I will, but we must all remain calm. The storm responds to fear, confusion, and conflict. Only through unity can we withstand it." Caleb took a deep breath, closing his eyes for a moment. He tried to steady his mind, to focus on calm thoughts, and to feel the bond he shared with Lyra. He did not know exactly how he was helping, but he trusted her guidance. The storm surged suddenly, sending waves of energy through the valley. The floating islands trembled, and glowing plants bent and swayed as if bowing to the invisible force. Lyra placed her hands on Caleb's shoulders, feeling the faint, steady vibration of his presence. Together, they projected calmness into the storm, creating a small area of stability around them. The storm pulsed again, stronger this time. Lyra could feel it probing for weakness, testing their connection. She focused, letting Caleb's steady energy anchor her mind. Slowly, carefully, they began to push back. The storm reacted violently, but their combined presence was a force it could not easily break. "Stay close," Lyra shouted to Caleb. "Focus on calm. Let your presence flow through me." Caleb nodded, concentrating on the warmth and steadiness he felt from Lyra. He felt a strange connection to the storm, a pull he could not explain. Somehow his mind, his emotions, were reaching the energy, guiding it gently. The villagers watched, tense and silent. Many had never seen such a sight, a human and a Xipheran working together to influence the energy of the planet itself. Some whispered quietly, amazed and hopeful. Lyra sensed the storm's frustration. It pulsed faster, shaking the floating islands, sending arcs of dark energy into the sky. But she did not falter. She felt Caleb's presence like a lifeline, steady and calm. Together, they directed the energy harmlessly into the mist, softening the storm's force. "You're incredible," Caleb said breathlessly. I didn't know I could do this." Lyra smiled faintly. "You do not need to speak or act. Being here, staying steady, that is enough. You are part of this now. Together, we can shape what seems uncontrollable." The storm surged again, but this time it seemed different. It was no longer chaotic. It was watching, testing, as if trying to communicate. Lyra felt faint vibrations in her mind, almost like words forming from the energy itself. Lyra, human, together, calm. She turned to Caleb. "It is trying to communicate. The storm is not just a threat, it is intelligent. It wants to test us, understand us, perhaps even learn from us." Caleb nodded, amazed. "So it's not just a storm, it's aware?" "Yes," Lyra said softly. "And if we respond correctly, we can turn this threat into understanding. We can form harmony, not just survive." They continued, moving slowly through the mist, projecting calm and unity. Caleb's focus strengthened as he realized that the storm responded directly to him and Lyra together. It pulsed faster when they faltered, slowed when they synchronized their thoughts, and shifted gently when they stayed steady. The villagers followed, cautiously keeping their distance, but observing closely. Many began to mimic Lyra and Caleb, focusing their minds on calmness and harmony, joining in the effort to stabilize the energy. Slowly, the storm's destructive power diminished. The floating islands stopped shaking, the glowing plants stood upright, and the mist lightened. At the heart of the storm, Lyra sensed a faint pulse, almost like a heartbeat. She reached out mentally, offering trust, presence, and calm. Caleb felt it too, responding naturally through the bond they had formed. Together, they created a field of unity that spread through the storm, connecting with the energy like a song. The storm reacted one final time, a massive pulse of energy that could have destroyed everything. But Lyra and Caleb held steady, and the energy flowed around them harmlessly, dissipating slowly into the mist. The sky cleared, and the sun shone through, reflecting on the floating islands like a golden river. The villagers erupted in cheers, rushing forward to thank Lyra and Caleb. The elder stepped close, her eyes filled with pride. "You have done what no Xipheran or human alone could do. You have formed harmony with the energy of this planet. You have proven that trust and unity can overcome any force." Lyra looked at Caleb, her heart full. "We did it together," she said softly. "Your presence, your trust. It made all the difference." Caleb smiled, though he was still catching his breath. "I didn't speak. I didn't even know I could do this. But I understand now. Sometimes just being there is enough." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. Presence can speak louder than words, and understanding can form bridges where language cannot reach." The villagers gathered around, still amazed and grateful. Many whispered to each other about the human who had helped calm the storm, the alien girl who had heard a voice no one else could, and the bond that had formed between them. They had witnessed something extraordinary, a connection that transcended words, species, and worlds. The elder approached Lyra and Caleb, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. "This day will be remembered for generations. You have not only saved the village, but shown that humans and Xiphorans can work together in ways we never imagined. Your bond is a bridge between worlds." Caleb looked at Lyra. "Do you think humans and Xiphorans can really understand each other like this, without words?" Lyra smiled. "We already have. Words are only one way to communicate. Presence, trust, and shared understanding can speak more clearly than language ever could." As the sun began to set, painting the sky with gold and violet, Lyra and Caleb walked along the floating paths together. The villagers slowly returned to their homes, safe and calm. The floating islands shimmered with restored energy, and the plants glowed gently, a reflection of the new harmony that now existed. Lyra paused at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the valley. The mist shimmered faintly, carrying the last whispers of the storm's energy. She felt a soft pulse in her mind, the echo of the storm's intelligence, no longer hostile but curious and calm. Caleb stood beside her, silent, feeling the connection in ways he could not fully explain. "Do you think it will return?" he asked. Lyra shook her head. "Perhaps. But now it knows we can respond with calm, trust, and unity. And we are ready. Whatever comes, we face it together." Caleb nodded. "Together," he said, a faint smile on his face. Lyra reached out, feeling the faint vibrations of his presence in her mind. It was steady, calm, and reassuring. For the first time, she realized that their connection was more than a gift or a chance event. It was a bond that could shape the future of their worlds. The stars began to appear in the Gipheran sky, reflecting on the glowing, floating islands. Lyra and Caleb stood side by side, feeling the energy of the valley, the presence of the villagers, and the gentle echo of the storm's intelligence. Lyra spoke softly, almost to herself, but Caleb could feel her words in her mind. Voices are not always spoken. Sometimes understanding comes from listening with the heart and mind. Caleb nodded. And sometimes just being there can change everything. They stood in silence, the valley calm, the storm gone, and the bond between human and Xiphoran stronger than ever. The universe had shown them a glimpse of its mysteries, and together they were ready to explore, understand, and face whatever came next. For the first time, both Lyra and Caleb felt a sense of peace and purpose. They had learned that trust, presence, and unity could overcome even the most powerful forces, and they knew, deep in their hearts, that this was only the beginning of an adventure that would span worlds, connect species, and reveal the wonders of the universe. As night fell, the glowing islands shimmered under the stars, and Lyra heard the faintest whisper of a voice, soft, calm, and reassuring. She smiled at Caleb, knowing that whatever the future held, they would face it together. And with that, the story of the alien girl and the human who spoke without words reached a new beginning, a harmony across worlds that no one would ever forget.